Hello there, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. P. Today we're talking about why does PCOS cause weight gain? This topic is very important because PCOS is increasing in our country. This is in the United States we're talking about. And so we're finding more and more people are being diagnosed with PCOS and having struggles that comes with PCOS. So in this video, we'll talk about and explore how PCOS affects your body. And specifically, we'll talk about how PCOS leads to weight gain, and we'll talk about what you can do in order to decrease the effects of PCOS on your body and decrease weight gain overall. Did you know that up to 70% of people with PCOS are undiagnosed? That means we are living life in a way that we think is normal, and we haven't been diagnosed with this problem yet, which could be due to the fact that we haven't seen the doctor to talk about the symptoms that we're having. I find that oftentimes we know that we're experiencing changes that are not normal, but we may talk to our mothers or our sisters and friends, and we're like, oh, okay, well, maybe one day things will return to normal. And so we go many, many years at a time with these symptoms and these problems, and PCOS is not diagnosed. And so most people don't know. Now, for those people that do know, the statistics shows that 1 in 10 females have PCOS. And that's 10% of our population. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but considering that most people do not know that they have it, we're actually missing the mark completely. And I really truly think that PCOS really affects about 50 to 60% of females. And that's a lot. And a part of that is that we may have difficulty losing weight with PCOS. Hence why we're talking about this topic in this video today. But let's talk about some more of those symptoms. With PCOS, we know that it's a hormonal disorder. It's a problem wherein we may have insulin resistance, which is that your body struggles to respond to the insulin that it does make internally. It also means that because of that struggle, we're not able to break down and use carbohydrates for energy. In general, our bodies love carbohydrates. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. That means that as far as energy goes, we can get energy internally. Energy for our hearts to beat, our brains to function, our kidneys to work, our lungs to breathe. All of our organs require energy to sustain themselves. What we do know is that the easiest energy for your organs to use comes from carbohydrates. That's the sugars that carbs break down into. There are also fats. Fat cells take the body quite a bit to break down and turn into energy. There's also protein. We don't want to use up our protein for energy, primarily because our proteins sustain our muscles and the physical organs. If we lose our protein, then we become weaker. So that's like the third option for energy. First, carbohydrates, second, fats, then protein. In PCOS, if you have insulin resistance and your body isn't able to use the carbohydrates first for energy, your body will try to use fats, but in the process of doing that, your body will store your carbohydrates as fats. And so what happens in those with PCOS is that you're trying to lose weight, but then you have insulin resistance, which happens to more than 70% of people with PCOS, and you're struggling with finding energy, using the carbohydrates you have for that energy, and you're struggling to use fats because it's so much of a longer and harder process to get energy from that, and you're storing more fat at the same time. And so people with PCOS go through, I feel like you chase your tails consistently in a circle because you're trying to fix the problem while creating more of the problem at the same time. And so what happens is that a lot of people with PCOS struggle to lose weight. A lot of people with PCOS gain weight. Sometimes it seems like just by looking at a piece of cake. And you just are completely becoming overweight, obese, you're gaining a lot of weight in the mid-abdominal section, you're increasing the risk of having other comorbidities like heart problems, cardiovascular issues, diabetes, all because of this hormonal problem. We also know that you may have excessive hair growth, you may have acne, you may have mood issues, changes, disorders. There's so much that can happen from this one problem. And so what do we do about this? So if you've now been diagnosed with PCOS and you're wondering, well, what can I do? The first thing that I would say is be sure that you're actually truly diagnosed. So many people I've seen will come in and say, hey, Dr. P, I think I have PCOS, or, I haven't had a period in a while. I've been told it's PCOS, but no testing has been done. So the first thing that I would say is be sure that you have an established diagnosis wherein you had blood work done to check your male hormones or androgens, as well as an ultrasound of the pelvis that checks your ovaries, checking for cysts on them so that you can get a true diagnosis. Once you have this diagnosis, then we must then determine what support your body needs. Because if you haven't had cycles in 6 months or a year, if you are skipping your cycles quite often, we know that increases the likelihood of you having uterine cancer. And so in the immediate setting, we may need to go on a hormonal medication such as birth control, to help you establish periods and menstrual cycles regularly, at least in the acute moment. It is never good for us to go a very long time without clearing the inside of our uterus, meaning shedding that inside tissue because of the increased risk of uterine cancer. It also means that if you have an excessive amount of testosterone, for instance, the male hormone, this androgen can also be dangerous for us in high amounts. So we may want to reduce that with medication support in order to come out of a danger zone. Now, as far as having cysts on your ovaries, once your body becomes more hormonally balanced, your ovaries won't produce an excessive amount of cysts. And I'll tell you quickly where those cysts are coming from. What happens typically in PCOS is that your ovaries, which I'll show you right here in our model, our ovaries will produce an egg each month. And the way that it does that, it pulls from one of the eggs we were born with and it starts to mature this egg. Once this egg reaches a certain size, it tells your body that it's ready to be ovulated. It's ready to be released into your fallopian tube to be fertilized. If you have PCOS, what happens is that the egg does not fully mature, and it may mature to about 60 or 70% of the size that it needs to get to. And so it never gets to the size to be released and ovulated. And so what happens is that your body says, well, no egg was released, no egg was fully matured, let's pull another one. And so your body then pulls another from the stores inside of the ovaries, and then it tries to mature it. Now, because of hormonal issues, that egg will stop at 60 to 70% of the maturity that it needs to get to. And your body again says, we have not created an egg that is fully matured enough to be ovulated and potentially fertilized. And so your ovaries will continue pulling another egg and pulling another and pulling another, trying to get one to be fully matured and be released. And so what happens is that your ovaries then begin to house all of these semi-matured eggs. And so your ovaries start to grow because they have a ton of eggs, not fully matured, sitting and being stored inside. And so when we look at these on ultrasound, we'll see lots of different eggs. Your ovaries will start to grow bigger and bigger with all of these eggs not getting ovulated. And this continues this hormonal problem that we have in PCOS. Believe it or not ovulating and not shedding that tissue and not having the hormonal changes that we need during our menstrual cycles may lead to us having more issues with weight gain. What we also know is that the weight gain of PCOS is also the most dangerous weight gain. It is the hardest to get rid of and the one that can lead to us having more comorbidities or problems with other diseases as well. This is the visceral fat that often is seen in PCOS. By visceral, we're talking about the fat that is found in our midsection, but truly we're talking about the fat that is inside, surrounding our organs in our abdomen. Whenever we gain abdominal weight, we may feel like, okay, our pant or skirt size is going up, but truly what's happening inside is that fat cells are being deposited around our organs, and those organs then become inflamed, and it's a little bit more difficult for them to function. Think of it as you having a heavy coat on, and you're trying to walk and move, and the coat is extremely heavy, and you're just like, I can't really move freely. And this is what can happen with our organs with PCOS. So what do you do about this? Well, there's plenty that can be done. Because PCOS is a hormonal condition, we can hormonally become more balanced so that PCOS and its effect in your system can be minimized and you can find yourself again. The first thing that you can do is help to reduce insulin resistance. And the way that you do that is by eliminating white processed foods. Off the bat, we want to get rid of all white processed foods such as white rice, white bread, pasta, no more. And the reason is these types of foods will spike your insulin when you eat them. Within 10 to 15 minutes of you eating a forkful or a spoonful of white rice, your sugars go through the roof internally. And so what happens with those with insulin resistance, your body then tries to pump out more insulin to bring the sugars down because it is not safe and healthy for your sugars to be that high. But in insulin resistance, your body doesn't respond to your insulin levels. And so if we want to reverse insulin resistance, we must remove the processed foods. The alternatives are brown rice. The grain that is still within the rice helps to decrease the likelihood of you having those insulin spikes or those glucose spikes. You want to have whole wheat, 100% whole wheat in your bread or your pasta. Again, having grains will help to decrease the insulin that's being released due to the spike in your sugars. Whole grains prevents any kind of glucose spike in your system. This is what is needed. And a twofold for eating grains is that grains also equal fiber. And fiber is amazing to help balance your hormones. It helps to get rid of excessive hormones like your estrogens out of your system because it will remain in your GI tract and be excreted in your stool. And this is exactly what you want. So it's almost like killing two birds with one stone. You want as much grains as possible. It also means that you should increase the amount of green vegetables that you have. And no, I'm not talking about iceberg lettuce because there isn't much nutritional status when it comes to iceberg lettuce. But kale, broccoli, green beans, asparagus, spinach, all of these are amazing for giving your body micronutrients that it needs, but also giving you fiber to help to balance your hormones. It means that we want to eat balanced meals otherwise. We want to have lean meats, lots of vegetables, decrease the amounts of sugary fruits such as grapes, pineapples, mangoes, and have more berries like blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, because that will decrease the amount of sugars entering your system. When it comes to PCOS weight gain, sugars and carbohydrates, white carbohydrates, are not friends of yours. And so making these changes will help a lot. And there's so much more that you can do. And I go into this in my course, the Madam Estrogen Mastermind. So because you've been listening and you have these concerns and I'm here to offer you help, I am offering you a deeply discounted rate for my hormone assessment. This assessment will give you a good picture of where you are hormonally when it comes to PCOS and the health and conditions that you have. It will give you information on how to structure your diet as well as how to exercise to increase your weight loss will also give you real-time accountability to help you on this journey because, sometimes together we are stronger than we are individually. Click the link below this video and I will quickly and happily send you the link and the information that you need for this assessment. Thank you so much for listening in. And what are your thoughts on what we talked about today? Can you share below in the comments section? I will be happy to read them and respond accordingly. Thank you so much for being here today. It's my pleasure as always. Take care.